Chris?
Moving on to item number 10, Financial Policies and Procedurals Manual.
Mayor and Commissioners, the City of Liberal Finance Department has worked over the past 5 months to review our existing purchasing manual and update it to a more robust financial policy that includes an annual calendar for planning and forecasting purposes, specific fund definitions, important budgetary deadlines, and expectations for not only department heads, but staff members as well as it pertains to expending.
As we stated in your packets, financial policies are central to a strategic, long-term approach to financial management. Our main goal in updating the policy was to provide solid and consistent financial practices within the city, as well as better define boundaries and manage risk. We feel that the approval of this updated financial policy will help move the city forward in a more structured manner and assist with succession planning as new staff members are onboarded and trained to the expectations of our entity.
Now, it is important to note that this is a working document, so it will need to be updated annually, especially as it pertains to the financial calendar, because local and state due dates can differ from year to year based on pending legislation and then other variants.
So we intend to probably present it in January of every year when we do some of those basic annual things. But it's taken us about 5 months to go through it and build it and make it to the level of what you see today.
And later this year, you're gonna see the personnel manual, and both of these take out in a lot of areas, waivable city manager. Because there's a lot of things that lead to ambiguity that someone in my position couldn't, I never intend on misusing it. Well, you never know who's gonna follow me, so codifying this was really important. I didn't mention it last time. You know, Kristen said 5 months. I mean, we're talking several hundred man hours that the finance department has spent combing line by line and comparing with other policies and making sure that we've got a cohesive, ethical purchasing system in place. And there are things that we did that we had been doing that were the right thing to do that wasn't really in the policy, i.e. my purchasing authority, emergency purchasing authority between the mayor and the city manager, but now all that is straightened out of who can spend what the authorities are, what conditions are for emergency. So a lot of details went in there that you know, bonding, insurance, all that stuff is, we now have a solid answer. So good job by the finance department.
Oh, thank you for all the work you've put into it.
Yeah, I read through it this afternoon, and I think particularly the section on bidding, it was really nice to specify everything in that, and that should take if not all, most of the question marks out of that whole procedure. So,
Yes.
yeah, good job on that.
Thank you.
Well, I'll make a motion that we approve the Financial Policies and Procedures Manual as presented in the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Vice Mayor Parsons and a second by Commissioner Warren. Any further discussion? Any discussion from the public? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? 4-0, motion passes. Thank you again. Moving on to item number 11, Language Access Plan.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. So for several months, we've been working on a language access plan. It's to be in compliance with certain federal grants and state grants. We do have a policy in place with our Title VI and our bus, but this needed to be a little bit more detailed to comply with HUD regulations. So we do have bilingual representatives that are going to oversee the program. Angelica is going to serve as the language assistance coordinator, and Erica Villa is going to be the Fair Housing Compliance Officer. So we are going to meet regularly on this if it needs updates. But this is so we can be in compliance with HUD regulations.
It's almost identical to what you approved before for the bus. I think it was last year. We had a lawsuit that was filed because of some, we didn't have a sign in Spanish, so this takes care of that moving forward. It codifies our procedures and make sure that people are, non-English speakers have a manner in which we can communicate effectively and everyone understands the requirements for. That issue is about a building permit, but across the board, we have something in place that takes care of it.
I make a motion to approve the language and access plan as presented.
Second?
Motion by Commissioner Landry and a second by Vice Mayor Parsons. Any further discussion? Any discussion from the public? All in favor? All opposed? 4-0, motion passes.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 12, the city slogan and modified logo.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. So tonight, we are bringing forth information about our logo and city slogan. Prior to my hiring, public engagement activities and surveys were done regarding our logo, whether it was a logo update refresh, as well as our city slogan, which currently is Crossroads of Commerce. Following those engagement activities, it was identified that changing the slogan from generosity to prosperity was the community's preference, but that leaving the logo the same as it is was their preference. And so I just wanted to bring that forward. If we're going to make a logo change, this is the time to do it. We've got new city vehicles coming in, and we have other things that we want to be able to brand with the right brand. And so we're bringing this to your approval to adopt the new city slogan, from generosity to prosperity. There is a copy of our current logo as well as the reformatted logo that updates that slogan.
The letters are a little taller, in case you're wondering.
The letters are
what the-
taller. They were
what the
kind of squished.
modification is. So the L's a little taller.
And so with that, as we refresh the logo and put that out there, it would not happen all at once. It'd be something that was phased in so that we're keeping costs low when it comes to switching that out and changing things.
It is a little more readable.
Yes.
So,
I think it's good, and it's been a year in the works now. And it did seem like we couldn't find a logo that anyone really latched on to, and I think this still also keeps the essence of what the old logo was, with still having a crossroads through it, so.
It's
I
a
like
nice
this motto.
nod to our historical founding. I think that's important, and that story is important to convey to others. So I think there's a reason it was identified as the preference.
Make a motion to adopt the new city slogan from generosity to prosperity, the modified logo design as presented.
a second?
I have a motion by Commissioner Landry and a second by Vice Mayor Parsons. Any further discussion? Any discussion from the public? Would you like to? By all means.
Sure.
Well, good evening. My name's Rex Petty, and I'm the pastor at Faith Tabernacle here in Liberal. I was born and raised in Liberal. In fact, my grandfather, his name was N.B. Mahurin, and if you've seen the Mahurin Park, it used to be the Mahurin football field, and he was the superintendent here in Liberal for over 30 years. He came here in the 20s and retired in the 50s, and he still has the longevity record of any superintendent in the history of Liberal. His name was N.B. Mahurin because his parents named him Napoleon Bonaparte Mahurin. So he shortened it to N.B. And my mother was raised here, I was raised here, except for the 5 years that I was off at college getting my degree. But I found something very, very special about all the years that I've spent in Liberal, Kansas. And I know Jeff, we were in the same class together, and I meet a lot of people in Liberal that have grown up here. But I found something that ties this community together that I've personally experienced, and that is the generosity of the people. And the logo, as was just brought up about from generosity to prosperity, I brought that here to you about a year ago. And also, I brought this story from Proverbs 11:25 that I found about 10 years ago as I was reading the Proverbs. What I like to do is there's 30 days roughly in every month. So on today's the 14th of May, so you read the 14th chapter of Proverbs. And it's a little nugget of wisdom. It's a very generic book, not anything real preachy or heavy. It's just a lot of good sayings. And I was reading through, and I couldn't hardly believe my eyes when I read this verse, this chapter and verse. It says, a liberal man will be enriched, and one who waters will himself be watered. And I read it again and again and again, and I thought that sounds like Seymour Rogers, the man who started Liberal, Kansas. And of course, I think all of you know the story. It's just simply about a man who came to live here. He needed water, so he started to dig a well. And I like to hear Earl Watt tell the story because he thinks that after about 20 or 25 feet of digging for the water, that he must have been thinking about giving up. And then when he got to about 50 feet, maybe he really felt like throwing the towel in, but he didn't give up. He kept digging, and he dug 88 feet, and he finally struck water. And then, of course, the story is when people would come around, as water was a very precious commodity, and they would want a drink of water, he would give them a drink of water, and they would say, well, how much do I owe you? And he says, the water around here is free. And they would say, well, that's mighty liberal of you. The word liberal is the key to this because it says a liberal man, because liberal has been hijacked and pirated by the politicians. It's too oftentimes referred to as a liberal media, a liberal candidate, and a lot of liberal. But liberal really means generosity. The Hebrew word in the book of Proverbs, it simply means generous. It means kindness. It means blessing. It means doing something to help people. And so the word liberal has a lot of different English words to translate it properly. And I first learned how misguided that the interpretation of it's been is many years ago. I went to New York City to visit an old roommate of mine who grew up in New York City. I mean, he was a roommate of mine. I'm from Liberal, Kansas, and he's from Queens, New York, a graduating class of 5,000 he graduated in. And he was working at the time at ABC News for Peter Jennings, if you remember the late Peter Jennings. And late Peter Jennings was there, and he was working, and he asked me to come down, me and all of my family, to go to watch the news live that night in New York City. Up high, they had a bird's nest area with glass plates that you could see down onto the newsroom and just watch the 5:30 news that night. It was a thrill to get in there. A lot of security even before 9/11 to get in there. And when he was done with the news, my friend, my roommate, comes upstairs. He says, Peter Jennings wants to meet you and your wife and your children. And I was quite shocked to think that the ABC news anchor for ABC would want to meet us. So we went down, we talked with him, and he says, where are you from? I said, we're from Liberal, Kansas. And he smiled. He said, I didn't know there were any liberals in Kansas. And then he said he knew Bob Dole well. And that made me think a long time ago that the word liberal needs to be kept in the context of what it really is. So I think how important it is that this idea of generosity leads to prosperity, that in a boxing match, they say you need a good 1-2 punch. We'll bring that, but also don't forget Proverbs 11:25. That's where I got the idea to bring it to you, was from this very verse. And then the idea of introducing it to you as generosity, from generosity to prosperity. That's just nothing but something that any city or any town, I think, would love to have adopt into their city, is to remind the people, to remind them over. Any educator will tell you you've got to repeat and repeat and repeat for people to retain it. I think we have to continue to remind people that we're liberal Kansas, and it's because we're generous, we're kind, we're caring. We want to do something good. We want to make a difference. We're not liberal politicians. We're not conservative politicians. We're not liberal media. We are liberal because we are generous. And I don't know, you probably saw in the paper just last week or the week before, all the money that the businesses and individuals in our community donated towards scholarships for our young people at the high school, the seniors. And I'm amazed every year that I see the total of all the money. And my 4 children that came through the school and graduated from high school, we cashed in greatly, my wife and I. She's a teacher, I'm a pastor, so you need a little extra to get your kids through college and get an education. People come together in this community, and I believe they gave over $150,000 the other night to all those kids. I mean, that just kind of puts a lump in your throat. Generosity, living up to our name. And that's what Seymour Rogers did. He could have sold the water. He could have sold it for quite a bit probably, because when you're without water out in this part of the country back then, you're in real trouble. But he gave it away. And that's mighty liberal of you. And that's how we got our name. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania got their name because they're known as the city of brotherly love. That's what Philadelphia means. It's a Greek word for love. So there's nothing that would prohibit us from encouraging the truth of what liberal means by adopting something that is good, that really tells who we are. Well, I'll be quiet. I got one more thing I want to say. I don't want to take too much of your time. I thank you for your listening to me. If you turn over to the back page of this, you'll see the hymn Amazing Grace. On February the 13th, I was in Olney, England, just a couple of months ago. As I went over to London, I traveled 60 miles north to Olney for Pancake Day, the 75th Pancake Day. Got to see the race, but the most thrilling thing for me is that the Church of St. Peter and Paul asked me to preach at the Shriving service this year. I think I'm the only pastor that's ever had the privilege of, they call it flying across the pond. I can tell you that's a big pond to cross the Atlantic Ocean and fly from Atlanta to London and then on to Olney. Well, as I went into the pulpit that day, John Newton, who Olney is known for, wrote this beautiful hymn, Amazing Grace. It's the #1 hymn of all time. You know, they have the top 20 countdown oftentimes in the most popular songs, even in contemporary. But Amazing Grace is the most popular and well-known hymn of all time. And John Newton wrote this, and he was the pastor of the church in Olney for 15 years, back in the 1700s. And as he wrote this, it's his amazing grace, because he had been a slave trader on the high seas for many years, a wicked man. But in a bad storm, he realized he needed to change his life. And of course, it was changed. He became the pastor there for 15 years, and Olney, England is known for Amazing Grace and John Newton. So when I stepped up in the pulpit, the very same pulpit that was there in the 1700s that he preached from, I got to get in that pulpit. I had to climb upstairs to even get into it, and be careful not to fall. And I told the people in Olney, since they have John Newton and Amazing Grace, and they are so well known for this, we've got Seymour Rogers. And I quoted Proverbs 11:25 to them, and I told them the story about how we got our name and Seymour Rogers and the well. And I took just a little time before I started my sermon at the Shriving service on February that 13th, on the Tuesday. And after the service was over, the vicar, the pastor of St. Peter, St. Paul Church, his name was Hugh Reed. He said, "Rex," he said, "I've never heard that before." He'd read Proverbs, a liberal man, but he'd never heard the real meaning of liberal, and he had associated it with politics as well. So the people in Olney even liked the idea, and hopefully with Amazing Grace and John Newton, well, maybe we can promote Seymour Rogers and the idea. Once again, I think it's important to keep it all together, the story, the history, the Proverbs 11:25, and also the logo. And I'd like to see it all together rather than fragment it with just from generosity to prosperity. Well, where did it come from? You know, footnotes in a book, you need footnotes to see where it came from. And then, of course, tie it right into the history, because when you tie it into the history, that's really what it's about. Thank you for your time. I just wanted to present this to you, and keep that in mind, that hopefully we can incorporate it all together. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further comments? Okay. All in favor? All opposed? 4-0. Motion passes. At that time, since this is an event, we will go ahead and make a proclamation. From the Office of Mayor, Liberal, Kansas, proclamation, whereas Seymour Rogers homesteaded in Seward County in 1885, and whereas Seymour Rogers hand dug a well 88 feet deep on a barren prairie where water was hard to find, and whereas Seymour Rogers gave his water away freely to weary travelers, earning him the name of that liberal fella for his generosity, and whereas that generosity led to the fledgling community that followed to be named Liberal, and whereas Liberal continued to prosper and grow and continues to grow to this day, and whereas Seymour Rogers and the liberal community reflected in Proverbs 11:25, which states, "A liberal man will be enriched, and one who waters will himself be watered." Therefore, from that inspiration, let it be known that the slogan of the City of Liberal will be "From Generosity to Prosperity." I will sign this now. Okay. Who would want to take this one? You want to take
You
it?
can give it to the clerk after. Mr. Mayor.
Okay. No presentation on this one, but thank you very much.
Thank
Moving
you,
on
Rex.
to item number 13, the Liberal Board appointment.
So, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, before you is a recommendation for appointment to the Library Board, Ms. Deb Huddleston, one of the best servants in Liberal. She's probably involved in more than any three people combined on average. Great work at the Farmers Market, Coalition of Families, and she wants to continue to serve on the Library Board. So the staff recommends appointment for another term. Unless Ms. Huddleston has any objections. Okay. She also serves as the Economic Development Secretary for the big group.
The Advisory Board?
Yes, yes. I'm not gonna give you her whole resume because we'll be here all night, but we appreciate her being willing to stand up.
I'll make a motion that we reappoint Deborah Huddleston to the Library Board, term to begin June of 2024 and run till June of 2028.
Second.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Parsons and a second by Commissioner Warren. Any further discussion? All in favor? 4-0. Motion passes. Thank you, Deborah. Moving on to item number 14, the land transfer.
So, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, the Doll Edition has 4 lots that are owned by the city that are legacy lots that were part of the self-help housing program. Mr. Edwards has 2 lots that he owns that are unbuildable because of size and the requirements that we need for infrastructure easements. He has agreed that if we would trade the 4 lots for his 2 lots, that he will build houses on those 4 lots. The 2 lots he has are gonna be perpetually unbuildable anyway, so this gives us an opportunity for 4 additional structures. The city will maintain the 2 lots that they get from Mr. Edwards, so it's essentially a 2-for-1 swap with the city maintaining the 2 new lots and Mr. Edwards building houses on the 4 that he's gonna receive. There'll be no financial, transfer. It's just a land for land swap.
And I think on one of the two lots that Edwards owns, he's actually gonna give the city an easement, and the city's not actually gonna own it. He'll still own it and still be subject to property tax on it, but the city will have the easement that we need, as Rusty mentioned, and then the other lot the city will own outright. And that's the way that that's written. If you guys approve that, then there'll be deeds that'll be executed, upon Mr. Edwards signing off on that agreement as well, to do the transfer.
So what you're asking us to do is approve this real estate agreement, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I make a motion to approve the trade of the 2 lots for the 4 as part of a real estate agreement with no transfer of financial.
I'll second that.
A motion by Commissioner Landry and a second by Vice Mayor Parsons. Any further discussion? All in favor? 4-0. Motion passes. We will now move on to item number 15, the animal control discussion.
So, Mr. Mayor, I'm gonna recommend, unless there's comment from the public, that we take no action on this and push it to the next meeting when Ms. Vasquez is present. This was an item that she wanted to discuss. She had specific things that she wanted the commission to reconsider, but, it would be more beneficial if she was here to execute this. She had a late-breaking commitment she couldn't get out of, and she couldn't be here tonight. But I know we may have some folks in the public who had some comments, and I would hate for them to come for nothing, but you want to invite them to make comments, but otherwise, take no action on this.
No, I agree. I'll invite any members that are here for comments on this issue to go ahead and step forward. But as the commissioner who asked us to bring it forward, being gone, we won't take action.
My name is Ronald Eckenrode. I live here in Liberal, Kansas, and I didn't hear a damn word you all were saying about the animal deal. And I know I've got good hearing, but I didn't quite understand what you were trying to pass or what you're trying to do. So if you could pronounce that or do that a little bit better so where we know what we're up against, you know? But really, right now, I don't know what you guys are voting on or passing or doing anything. I did not hear a thing. The only thing that I have heard is that they're trying to stop all the barking and stop all the people with illegal, if you don't participate with, with vaccinating your animals or keeping your animals in the house and not causing trouble. But I don't know what you guys was talking about at all. But myself, I've got a few animals. They're all spayed and neutered, all vaccinated up until 20, but I've got some outside cats, and I got 2 inside cats now that I just had spayed and neutered, so they're vacuumed, and they're all taken care of. But I don't know what this animal control thing is all about.
So,
Is that what I'm talking about now, or am I talking about something different?
No, so at the last meeting, the commission approved an updated ordinance that made 3 changes. One required annual registration, which we're one of the few cities that don't already have that. It required a rabies vaccination for the pets, and it required citizens to clean up after their pets if they use the bathroom on public or private property. So that was all the changes that were made to the existing ordinance. There's the whole.
Okay.
So that's what you saw on film was a pretty long explanation of the entire ordinance, but those were the only 3 changes that were made, were registration, a requirement for rabies vaccination, and for a requirement for you to clean up after your pet if they use the bathroom on somebody's private or public property. So pretty basic stuff. And while the ordinance is in effect, the additional things are not going to be enforced until January to give everyone 7 months to get ready to be
So,
in
does
compliance.
that mean how many pets a person can have?
So the city has always had a limit, but those are more for habitual offenders who misuse animals.
Yeah.
The city is not gonna go start looking at people's backyards and
Well,
snatching
they haven't
pets.
never done that
Yes.
anyway.
So,
It's usually we have reported, and then after you report it, they usually don't do anything about it. But for the people that contribute to the law and fixes all their animals where they're supposed to be, I don't think they ought to be getting in trouble. It's for the ones that don't do it, you know, so I'll have to read this because I don't know, you know.
Yeah,
But I
so-
just don't want my animals to be taken away from me for all the time that I've spent on them, the money that I've spent on them, and the care that I've spent on them.
yeah, so you'll read in there that the only time that the number of animals becomes an
If you're
issue
reported,
is if you are mistreating the animals.
yeah,
So,
that's a good deal.
So if there's no mistreatment, then we'll never
I'm
know.
telling you that,
And-
okay. Well, that sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Appreciate y'all, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Are there any other comments?
I just have one question.
Yeah, please.
$50 per animal. I don't have a problem with the last two that you mentioned, but you want to charge me $50 an animal every year.
No, it's $10 per animal if it's spayed or neutered, 25 if it's not.
Right, so if they're spayed and neutered,
It's $10.
I have to pay
per-
that every single year.
Yes. And this is the only city I've ever lived in that didn't already have that. So it's pretty uncommon, especially, even in southwest Kansas, because Garden and Dodge have similar regulations, on the annual registrations.
Because see, I was told it's $50 an animal,
No, it's $10 if it's spayed and neutered, 25 if it's not.
and we're gonna have to do, where do we need to do all that at?
So that will be done at the animal shelter. We're also looking at an online solution, so you don't have to go all the way out to the animal shelter. But that's why we're given 7 months, lead time before that stuff starts getting enforced.
And the money you collect from that, what are you gonna use that for?
So, we are looking at a city-funded spay and neuter program. Right now, we have a more complicated process, but, it's more of the money going into a revolving fund type situation where the city could potentially, so right now, if you come out and you adopt an animal, you're charged a certain fee, and then you're given a voucher that if you go and get the animal spayed and neutered, you come back, you get your money back. We're looking at a way that we can spay and neuter the pets before they're ever adopted. So these fees will go into kind of the fund to help offset those costs, make it easier on the citizens. So you don't have to make multiple trips out to the shelter.
To see what I was looking at, if you're gonna use money and you're gonna charge me for that, there should be some kind of a park for these dogs to go to too.
And that was a huge part of the thing, because we couldn't do that without the proper vaccinations. So that is a huge, the dog park, which right now is slated to be kind of right over here to the that one, I'm sorry, right out here, the dog park will be built over there, but we had to get the vaccinations in place, we had to get the safety of the animals and the safety of the agriculture in place before we could build the park, and that ordinance contributes to that.
Okay, that's all I need to find out. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Sir, we can have your name for the record.
Fred Cato, K-A-D-O-W.
Thank you.
And I think I do want to address the $50. I believe that's the first time offense for an animal at large. Might be $50? Higher? 25? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a different fee. Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay. Are there any other comments on this issue? So at this time, we will table this issue and bring it back to be discussed.
So technically, Mr. Mayor's, he would say it if he were here, and it annoys me, but he's probably right. We're gonna take no action, we're not gonna table it.
Oh, so we're just going to take
Table
no
it.
action on this
Yeah.
issue. Item number 16, city staff.
Just wanted to provide an update on our comprehensive plan. We're currently in the public engagement portion of that plan. A lot of activity this week, so just a rundown of what we're doing. So to this point, we've received 517 surveys, which is excellent. I'd love more. The survey itself is gonna be open through May 22nd. So this week, we do have a steering committee. That 44-person steering committee will be meeting on Thursday evening at 5:30 at the college. There will be an hour-and-a-half long session where we'll do similar visioning exercises to what was done with our city leadership here several weeks ago. On Friday, we will have all-day sessions for stakeholder similar visioning exercises. So far, the college, Rotary Club, Kiwanis, and then our realtors and members of the Focus on the Future Board are going to be involved in those meetings. We are slated for end of the month to do a secondary visit where they can include additional stakeholders, USD 480 and others. And then Saturday, we will be at the Yellow Brick Road Car Show all day, just inviting people to come over, take the survey, talk with us. They'll have different boards and information available for people to kind of weigh in and just provide some, general comments on what they'd like to see in Liberal. So lots of activity this week. If you haven't already taken the survey, please do. Glad to take any questions.
She did a great job today at Rotary, presenting the information, really positive feedback. A lot of folks looking to participate in the engagement. So we're looking at a very robust set of data when we get ready to make a recommendation to you guys for final decision.
Okay. Sounds good. I'm excited to see where it's going. I sat in on some of the meetings and I enjoy the discussion part, but I'm also ready for that planning phase where we can prepare that plan and be able to present that to the public as well. That'll be the fun time. Any other city staff?
Just a couple of updates on some projects. McCray Pool, so we've demolished the building, getting ready for the splash pad. Last week, the young lady from Oasis Splash Pads was here. We did a complete walkthrough, both sites with water department, Chewy's crew, the parks department. Everybody was there, and she was pretty impressed with how organized and how everything's gonna flow. Over here at McCray, they've already put the new sewer line in. They'll have the water and electricity done by the weekend. So we're moving forward pretty fast. And once we get everything cleared out, it'll be on their timetable when they can get here to finish those projects. We've got some bids out on some projects, the re-roof of the gym, the pickleball court bids will go out tomorrow. And all those bids are on our city webpage. So if anybody wants to bid on them, click the bid tab and then they can also sign up for future bids if they want to be notified, or it'll give them a notification on the bids. Like Keeley said, the car show's this weekend, kind of a big weekend in Liberal. Parks are busy. Swimming pool, they've gotten new pump slides in and going through motors and stuff, so getting ready for it to fire up. That's about it.
Okay. Thank you. City managers report, item number 17.
Yeah, so Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, once again, congratulations to Ms. Hidalgo on her MMC. It's very easy once you get the certification you're supposed to have to stop, but she's continued to work and advance to the master level, and she's continuing to work not only on her professional certifications, but also completing her bachelor's degree. So she's juggling a lot while she continues to do a great job for the city. City clerk is probably the worst job in the city, and she embraces it. You guys talk often about how you want to make sure I don't go anywhere. We need to make sure she doesn't go anywhere. So things can come off the rails pretty quick without somebody like her. So a huge appreciation for her. The solar project is slated to have stamp plans by the end of next week with construction starting June 5th. So he said, if my public school calendar reading is right, he said the Wednesday after Memorial Day, which according to the calendar I looked at would be June 5th. So that's when that part will begin. Now, there'll be a little lag because we got to get the roof done here before they can do this building, but that's kind of the timetable for that. And then today, the mayor and vice mayor, Keely and myself, along with about 20 other people, went to a ribbon cutting for Highway 54. The Secretary of Transportation for the state of Kansas and his staff was here to highlight the opening of the new construction and talk a little about the 5483 expansion or revamp. And it's nice to have the visit. It's nice for them they get the reports and they hear other things, but it's nice for them to hear in person about the impact that 54 has on the state economy. And anytime we get an opportunity to put that stuff in their ears personally, it's a good day. We didn't get what we wanted from them this year, but we're going to continue to work and hopefully get our 4-lane from, like the other states have done, from the state line up to Wichita and really kind of transition us to a much more prosperous community. So, but anyway, it was a step in the right direction. It was nice to have it here.
Thank you. Completely agree. Item number 18, items from commissioners. Since you're by yourself, we'll start with you, Ron.
I get to start.
Yeah.
I want to thank staff for what you do and want to congratulate Alicia for her accomplishment. That's quite an accomplishment. She's been around here almost as long as me and definitely more consistently and a much harder job than me. So I'd like to congratulate her for what she does and what she's accomplished. It's much appreciated and I also like to say thanks to the rest of the staff too, but it's a special day when you can get an award like that. So that's all I have.
Say thank you to the staff and congratulations, Alicia. Thanks for the rain. We've gotten a little bit of it. We definitely need a lot more of it, but I can see that, in the industry that I'm in, the farmers are starting to like it a lot. It's definitely keeping me busy right now, for sure. Thank you to all the staff out there that's getting things ready inside the city with, getting the public pools up and running, the water park, and you can see a lot more activity out there right now, for sure. People are enjoying the parks and going for walks. Every morning I see people jogging and running and walking their dogs, and it's really nice to see. So the warm weather is definitely welcome, especially on my part. So that's all I've got.
Thanks, as always, to the staff. Appreciate your hard work. I know it's getting ready to get busier for everybody. And the staff's gonna grow this summer with summer help coming on. But I wanted to single out a few folks. Alicia, congratulations to you on all your hard work. And Rusty's right, that's the worst job in the city. And we appreciate you doing that and doing it so well. So thank you. And Chris, appreciate you and the creativity to find a way out of a kind of a budget problem and find some equipment that we needed. And so I appreciate your creativity and your work. And the finance policy, I read through that thing, and that's a great piece of work. And so thanks to all those who helped put that together. And then final thanks to Rex Petty for being
Muse?
how do you do that? How do you say that? The
Architect.
Yeah, there we go. The architect of the new slogan and helping us with the inspiration for that. And that's been kind of festering for a while, and I'm glad we finally have it done and ready to go. So thank you, Rex. Appreciate it.
I need to make one addition. I found the scripture, but my wife actually came up with from generosity to prosperity, so I better give credit.
Yeah, well, then thank you to Edie for that so much. That's all I have.
Okay. As always, thank you to the staff. And really, I should probably do it more often, try and spend some time too, thanking everyone personally, because it takes the entire group to get everything done. As we mentioned, hundreds of man hours to get everything. I think your letter mentioned it perfectly as well. Jeff, being a former employee now on the commission, definitely understands what everyone has to go through, but the amount of work we've put into now, both in all the different manuals, policies that have been, are crucial to making sure all our progress continues forward. There's no way to thank everyone enough, because this is a group effort that just continues to happen. Now, that being said, I will thank Alicia, because that is one of the funnest jobs you have to do out there. And she definitely helped us that first year as a new commission. Brad, thank you for helping maintain the city, but she helped us with all of our meetings and everything else we had to do as a new commission, trying to figure out what we were doing during our city manager search. So it's definitely a very important position, and the way you've handled it is, I appreciate it very much. So thank you for that. And we've said plenty of thank you for you, Rusty, but always thank you for everything you do and just the atmosphere that you've allowed for these employees to have, because that's also very important. And then we'll just continue to have those conversations with all the different members of the legislature, KDOT, and they now have probably come out to Liberal in the last year and a half more times than any Secretary of Transportation had ever come out to Liberal in the last 10 years before that. So it's a continuing effort to make sure that they see us, they hear us, and they know we're here. And trust me, they know we're here and that we're not going to go away if they don't give us what we want. So the squeaky wheel will definitely get to grease. That being said, item number 19, the vouchers.
I'll make a motion that we approve the vouchers in the amount of $2,532,043.22.
I second.
A motion by Commissioner Warren and a second by Commissioner Landry. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? 4-0, motion passes. We are adjourned.